Recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, there are many times when we come to this floor and engage in heated debate, and we have heard some heated debate on this bill. But my final amendment offers us the opportunity to come together and to do something extraordinarily important to contain the escalating costs of higher education. I want to be clear. Passing this amendment will not prevent the passing of the underlying bill. If it's adopted, my amendment will be incorporated into the bill, and the bill will be immediately voted upon.
House is not in order. The gentleman is correct. The gentlewoman deserves to be heard. Gentlewoman may continue.
Regardless of how one feels about the bill, we should all agree on a major problem facing students and their families. I'm talking about the skyrocketing cost of higher education, putting the American dream way out of reach for far too many students. Mr. Speaker, my final amendment is very simple. It says that nothing in this bill should limit the Secretary's ability to reduce the cost of higher education for students. In 2007, Democrats, working with President Bush, lowered the interest rate on need-based student loans to 3.4% at no cost to taxpayers. This change is saving college graduates thousands of dollars in student loan payments. But unless we act soon, the interest rates on these loans will double this summer. That will cost the more than 7 million student borrowers at colleges and universities across the country more than $2,800 in additional interest payments. Mr. Speaker, students cannot afford graduating from college with mortgage-sized debts. Student loan debt now surpasses overall credit card debt. We can do something about this. We need our graduates to be developing the next clean energy source, discovering the cures for life-threatening diseases. We need them to fill vital jobs in our communities, such as nurses, teachers, firefighters, and police. We don't need them to leave school overwhelmed by student loan payments, and we don't want them avoiding higher education in the first place due to the threat of crushing debt. Instead, we should make sure they are prepared for good-paying jobs in the market, in the global marketplace, and we can do that by making college more affordable. But incredibly, this bill limits the Education Secretary's ability to protect students and taxpayers from higher education costs. With more than $200 billion in aid distributed each year, the Secretary must have the tools to lower costs for students and their families and to protect our nation's investments in education. Hands at a time when we must be utilizing every tool available to keep college costs down. And in particular, we should not do this while students face a potential doubling of interest rates on their loans, which will happen this summer if Congress doesn't take action now. The cost of borrowing for a student loan is already too high. Let's not make the problem worse. Again, my amendment simply states that nothing in the bill shall limit the Secretary's ability to reduce the cost of higher education for students, something we can all agree upon. So I urge a vote to lower costs for students and hard-working American families, and I'm pleased to yield to my distinguished colleague from California, George Milton.
I thank the gentleman for yielding. I thank her for offering this motion to recommit. I say to my colleagues here in the House, this is a very simple proposition. If Congress fails to act in July of this year, interest rates on student loans will double. And if those interest rates on student loan double, that means that the average borrower will pay another $2,800, almost $3,000 in additional interest. At a time when families and students will be paying higher interest rates than any time in the recent past, we ought to make sure that the Secretary has the authority to make, that they understand that they get value for what they're buying, that they don't get overcharged, that they're not the subject of fraud and abuse and the waste in the system when people try to overcharge them for the number of units that they're offering them. We cannot let these students go into this area unprotected when interest rates are about to double. Congress can solve this problem by retaining the interest rates at 3.25% and be done with this issue, and the legislation will go forward. But if we don't protect the students and their families from the increase in interest rates, then the Secretary retains the authority to make sure that they're not subject to waste, fraud, and abuse when they're borrowing money to pay for their education. I thank the gentlewoman for introducing her legislation.
Thank you. I urge a yes vote on the motion to recommit, and I yield back the balance of my time.
Gentlewoman yields back. For what purpose does the gentlewoman from North Carolina rise?
I am opposed to the motion to recommit.
Gentlewoman is recognized for 5 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, I reserve all points of order against the motion. Mr. Speaker, we don't need this motion to recommit. My colleagues should all vote against it. We have a situation where our colleagues across the aisle want to take the Secretary of Education and make him the czar of education. We, on our side of the aisle, are very much concerned about the cost of a college education, and we've done a lot to make college accessible and affordable for students in this country. However, increasing rules and regulations simply increases...
Gentleman is correct. The House will be in order. Gentlewoman may continue.
Mr. Speaker, would you please ask the House to be in order again?
Gentlewoman deserves to be heard. Members would please take their conversations from the floor. Gentlewoman may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Republicans are very much concerned about the cost of going to college ourselves. We want to reduce the cost of going to college. Our subcommittee has had hearings on this. There are many ways to do this, but having the federal government establish price controls is not the way to do it. The federal government, in fact, has encouraged too much borrowing. Because the federal government has been such a big borrower itself, it has established that kind of mentality across the country. So we'd like to see the level of borrowing reduced. We'd like to see the level of debt and deficit go down so that the economy would rebound, people could get jobs, and those who do have debt would be able to better deal with that debt. We do not need more government rules and regulations. We don't need the federal government picking winners and losers, and we don't need this kind of authority ceded to the Secretary of the Department of Education. The Congress needs to be dealing with these issues. We are dealing with the issues. The underlying bill deals with the issues because we reduced the role of the federal government and rules and regulations. Higher education has policed itself very well over the years. We need to pass the bill, the underlying bill, and reject the motion to recommit. Balance of my time.
Gentlewoman yields back. Without objection, the previous question is ordered. The question is on the motion to recommit. Those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed will say no. No. The noes have it.
I ask for a recorded vote.
A recorded vote is requested. Those favoring a recorded vote will rise. A sufficient number having risen, a recorded vote is ordered. Members will record their votes by electronic device. Pursuant to Clause 9 of Rule 20, the Chair will reduce to 5 minutes the minimum time for any electronic vote on the question of passage. This will be a 15-minute vote.